Today we are going to be installing some brand new Reservoir Fox Shocks in this 2014 Ram 1500. I've already got installed on the truck a Zone 6-inch lift. For those who don't know, the Zone 6-inch lift is actually identical to the BDS lift for this the Ram 1500 trucks, with the exception of the shocks that they use. So all the parts, all of the hardware brackets, they're all really close or identical, and all of the actual alignments and all that stuff is the same. So I actually bought the Zone lift about a year ago, and I had always intended to put in new shocks on this truck. And originally, you know, I'd always planned to put in King shocks, but I'd been browsing and the price came up for the Foxes, and they were on sale for about $1,000 less than normal. So I just had to pull the trigger and get it done, and today we're gonna put them in. Today we're installing these Fox Shocks, 2.5-inch reservoir adjustable shocks for a 6-inch lift, and 2-inch adjustable reservoirs, low speed only, on the back for this 2014 Ram 1500 for my truck. It's already got a Zone 6-inch lift installed that I installed about a year ago, and the plan was always to put in these new shocks, and today we're going to do it. So stay tuned and we'll walk you through the process. We're going to start with the front. We're going to take everything off. We're going to move to the back, take everything off. We'll show you guys a side-by-side comparison of the existing suspension, and then you know, get you a sense of how much bigger the new suspension is. So stay tuned and we'll get right to it. So there's no truly good spot to lift on the back of this truck unless you have an actual shop lift. So if you're just using a jack, unfortunately you're kind of limited to going somewhere on the axle. You can either go off to the sides if you're just working on one tire, or you can go off the center of the diff if you're trying to lift the whole truck. Now the problem with going off the axle is that means you're either going to have to jack onto the axle if you're just working on the tires, or in this case, since we're going to actually be removing the axle completely, we're going to have to put our jacks on the frame, and this means that the axle itself is going to drop. So it's sometimes tricky to get enough height and be at the right spot, but if you are going to lift on your diff, you definitely want to make sure you're providing some sort of padding. I just generally use a couple microfiber cloths. It's not perfect, but so far in 5 years of owning this truck, it's worked just fine. Again, like I said, we're going very high because the axle is actually going to drop when we take the compression out. We want to make sure we're high enough once we settle that we're still off the ground with the tires. Alright, so we already loosened off all the lug nuts. So we're going to take off all 4 wheels in this case, and then we're going to tuck the wheels underneath the frame just in case something happens. Okay, so for those of you who've never replaced the shocks or the upper control arms, I'm going to walk you through how to take it all apart on a 2014 Ram 1500. This is a 4x4 crew cab. It is a little bit different if it's a 2-wheel drive, but hopefully you have a 4-wheel drive, so we'll just go with that. a lot of people tend to have problems removing the upper control arm from your knuckle, and it's actually really simple. You just have to hit it with a mallet. First step here, we're gonna be dropping this whole shock out. So we need to allow this lower control arm to the room to move, to drop. So we're actually going to disconnect. This is our front sway bar, our sway bar linkage. We're going to disconnect our front sway bar on both sides. These aren't torqued on there very much. You may have to use a socket for you, but I had just worked on this truck last week and I don't torque these up too much because otherwise your bushings get destroyed, and you actually want to have a little bit of movement in there. So I have this is the Ready Lift upper control arm tubular. If you have a stock upper control arm, or if you have a Mevotech upper control arm, you'll probably need to use either an open-ended wrench or a pass-through socket set to hold the actual ball joint from spinning. For whatever reason on this one, it doesn't spin. So, but it does have this little clip that I'll quickly remove, and then once this clip is removed, we can actually get at the rest of this. By the way, to remove this bolt, it's a 16mm socket. This on mine is an 18, I believe. On the stock upper control arm, or sorry, this is a 19. I believe on the stock upper control arm, it's actually a 21mm socket. So on this one, I'll just use straight to the socket. All right, now, this is the part that a lot of people have problems with, which is separating this from the knuckle. We'll try and put pickle forks in there. They'll try smashing down on this. Generally though, you just want to hit hard on the side, and it usually comes free fairly quickly. If it's super seized on, you'll want to spray some penetrating grease in there beforehand, and that'll help it free up for you. See? And we're loose. So, looking at this, we're going to need to pop this tie rod off. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. If you actually come around and see, you'll see that this tie rod has a hex head on the bottom of the bolt. That's because this will actually spin freely. We might get lucky here. If it's tight enough, sometimes it'll stay, so we'll be able to loosen it off. But we'll give it a go. Otherwise, I'll have to grab the open end wrench. And this is on this tie rod, which is the BDS and Zone tie rod head. It's a 22mm, which I did not grab. 22mm socket, and that's what you need to pop this off. And it's the exact same thing with the tie rod as it is with the upper control arm. And we're free. So this is going to be for the bottom shock. It's going to be a 24mm to the rear side, 24mm socket, and it's going to be a 21mm socket on the front side here. This bolt can get pretty seized up, especially if you haven't taken it off in a while. So we'll see how she goes. It'll usually come right out just like that. And then before I put this bolt back in, we're going to reuse this bolt on the new suspension. I should have bought new ones. These are a little bit old and worn out. But I'm going to clean all this up with a wire brush, get the rust off, and before I put it on the new suspension. So as you can see, I lowered that just enough. You can see here that the shock itself is actually free, so we're going to be able to pop this out. And then it's a 17mm bolt. There's 3 of them up top here. It's really nice to have a wrench like this that's articulating. You can get them at Canadian Tire, Home Depot, wherever the hell you can shop in your location. And there you go. That's the zone lift 6-inch block. Okay, so for the rear, unfortunately, you could potentially get this shock off without taking the shroud, but it's really hard. So we're gonna take the shroud out, which I really didn't want to do because I actually have some rock lights here that I may have to screw around with to get this out. But we'll see. So we're gonna take all the screws around the outside. I got my mud flaps as well. Gotta take all that off. And there. Alright, that was not too bad. So we're gonna pull this shock here out. Now on the original install on this truck, there's nothing to actually stop this bolt from spinning. So if you're installing these with the original shocks on the truck, I ended up finding that these worked okay. I was able to get them behind there. It's obviously really tight in there, but I was able to get this in behind there and hook that in with a bar to stop it from spinning, or even just putting this in by itself will stop it from spinning. I think we'll have better luck today just because if I remember correctly, I think this little L bracket here actually came with the zone kit to make it easier to install it. So that is good news, and that should save us some time removing this shock. Now, you can see why you need to actually support your axle when taking this out. I thought I'd just do the first side because it'll drop. It's not going to drop all the way. Still got a sway bar links holding everything up. But before I take everything else off, I will have to drop the sway bar links. I just thought of doing this for now. Gives us a little bit of space to work. And I can probably pre-mount this shock, the new one, in location. I'll do the same the other side before I completely drop it. I'll get the axle shaft on there and then we'll start taking everything apart. Quick comparison. Size-wise, they're not that far off. You can see this one's a little bit longer, being that it's going to be for a larger lift. Other than that, we've got the reservoir, we've got the adjustable low speed, and yeah, so this has got nitrogen and gas in there, so it should perform a little bit better than the just off-the-shelf standard shock. Okay, so after we've taken out the sway bar links and we dropped the track bar, I dropped the axle on the jack a little bit. You just let it off and close it up. So you should have enough room to just pick your shock coil up and just slide it by, and boom. That's how you get your shocks off. You can leave your, if you're doing the full lift kit, you would be probably taking these right off because you have to install these brackets. Same thing, this is your bump stop bracket. Since we're going from the 3-inch to the 5-inch rear, we're going to rotate this bracket around and that'll give us the adjustment there.